Hey guys, it's Jaime with Banda's Palette. Today we are cleaning up my new to me Supermax 1938 drum sander. I bought it off of a gentleman that was going out of business from he was a contractor, and he said that he rarely used this drum sander, and you can tell it's in really nice condition, almost brand new. But I'm not sure what he ran through it, but the rollers were extremely gross, full of like it looked like plaster was stuck to them. And I have a rag here with some lacquer thinner, and I'm just going through and just cleaning up all that gunk. To take off this roller assembly, it's really simple. It has 4 Allen bolts, and I'm gonna link a video of I'm gonna link a YouTube video that will give you some information on how to align the drum to the conveyor, and then also how to um, calibrate the tension from the rollers, just so it makes sure that you're holding down your wood. That stuff just wasn't coming off, so I had to use a razor and just lightly just shaving off that material that was on there, and just with a little elbow grease I was able to get it all off. So this sander, I'm really excited. When I first started testing pieces on it, I noticed that the wood wasn't grabbing on there, because I have a Grizzly 12-inch drum sander, and then also a Ryobi 16-inch by 32-inch drum sander. And this one it had a serious kickback, and then the snipe was awful. And so that's when I figured I needed to adjust the drum, and then also get these rollers completely dialed in. So just cleaning off that junk off of here. Here in a moment you're gonna see I'm just gonna use some wet dry sandpaper. I think I have like 1500 grit, and really I'm just wanting to get these rollers nice and smooth, almost back to like factory smoothness. So here I'm just wiping them off, just making sure. And I noticed that towards the ends there, I don't know what the gentleman had ran through it, but it was a little bit, you could tell that it was just, it had marred up that metal. So here what I'm doing is just cleaning off the brackets. There was some dust, and there we are with the sandpaper like I just mentioned. Taking off all that, and really just smoothing it out, and it's coming out really nice. And then here in a second you'll see me, I'll have to wipe them all off and get all the water and all that I used on the sandpaper. But here I'm using some paste wax just to get the rollers, just so if they get wet or anything like that, that it helps for a moment, to resist water and all. Also so that the material can just glide through it. So just wipe some of that on there, and then just wipe it right off. And then inside of the bushings that these rollers roll through, I'm going to put a little bit of grease. Look like what from the manufacturer, it looks like it maybe had some grease in it also. So I just got some high heat grease on there. And it's funny, it's like no matter how hard I try to not get grease all over my hands, here in a moment you'll probably see when I take the gloves off, you always somehow, even if you're trying to be careful, you still get grease all over your fingers. So that's why it's good to have the orange solution to wash your hands with. But here what I'm doing is I'm just putting it back together. I don't know if you noticed in the video, but I had labeled what side was the right side and the left side, just in case it needed to go back exactly the same. But they look like the same pieces, just opposite sides. So here what I'm doing is I'm attaching the Allen bolts on each side, and you can kind of see right there how easy it is. It's just 4 bolts holding this whole assembly together. I do wish that the hinge though on this dust cover was a little bit more stiff, like how I have it open there. I wish it stayed in position there, but I'm not going to complain. The amount of surface that you can sand on these sanders is phenomenal. So I guess having the hinge not be so awesome is okay. So here I'm just putting on the roller assembly. And then what I did also here is whenever they have you reset the drum, and here I'm just showing you an example of what the roller and having the drum be a lot lower. And in the video that I'll have in the description, it shows you how to loosen those bolts. And then here what I'm doing is I'm just lowering the head, or the drum head. And those two pieces of wood there are identical in height, so they recommend having two pieces of material that are the same measurements. So here what I'm doing is I'm just kind of going really slow, and you'll get a shot here of, see right over here on this end, it's really high compared to you can kind of see right there, there's a little gap there, and then over here it's a huge gap. So that was the answer to why I was getting snipe, and also that kickback was, you know, once it would get a piece, it was just knocking it back towards me. So here what I'm doing is I'm just lowering it to see, I'm trying to see how much I need to adjust. And there's a little nut right there, I think it was a 7/16 wrench that I used, and if you go to the left, and I'm even writing it down for future reference just in case I need to do this again, is if you go to the left, it lowers that part of the drum down. If you go to the right, it raises it. So just kind of mess with it to see exactly the you know, right, basically what you're wanting is the drum to touch on both surfaces of the wood equally. And here's where I'm using my Harbor Freight free lights. So I'm just seeing if daylight's coming through the bottom there. One tip though that I know that video doesn't give is that whenever you go to tighten those Allen bolts back after you've adjusted this, give that bolt just, I would say, just a hair's turn, like a quarter of a turn in the direction that you were adjusting it. Because I noticed that when I started to tighten up those Allen bolts, the conveyor top slightly moved. So then the piece on the outside there that's right next to me, that wooden piece, it actually wasn't completely gripping down, or it wasn't really pushed down by the drum anymore. So you'll have to kind of mess with it, and you can kind of see here I'm seeing, does the wood move, what's going on here? And that's where I started finding out, oh okay, once I start tightening down those Allen bolts, the that piece of wood does move. So that's where I was just kind of figuring out where I wanted, where that sweet spot is. See, it's just moving way too much. So it's just one of those things where you just have to really just mess with it, tighten it, loosen it, tighten it, and see exactly where you want it to be. So, and I finally got it all, so looks like I'm getting all these tightened back down and calling it a day on that part of it all. In the video that you'll see, it shows you how to put the tension on the rollers. That's super simple, and I don't think I got the video on that on this, but if you just watch that video, it's like a 2-minute video on how to do that. Here what I'm doing is the sandpaper that I had used, it was all marred up and it had all kinds of gunk on it, so I wanted to get a brand new strip here. So I'm just cutting a new strip of sandpaper. This sandpaper is really nice. Just started with this company. It's Beaver Industrial Supply, and they're located in St. Louis, so it's just right down the street from me here in Kansas City. So it took about a day for me to get these rolls, and I tell you, these rolls are awesome. I can use, they're heavy duty enough that I can use them on this sander, which it's a non-hook and loop, and then I can also use it on my Grizzly drum sander, which is a hook and loop. So now I don't have to buy, just cloth back paper and hook and loop, so I can just use just this brand. And It's super cheap, but the quality is amazing compared to I've bought sandpaper from, you name it, Grizzly, Amazon, Woodcraft, Kingsplorer, Two Sand, eBay, you name it. I've bought rolls of sandpaper from them all, and this is absolutely amazing as far as the quality, and the longevity that I can use it. And then really the nice thing is the price. The price is awesome. You can't beat that price. So I'm definitely going to be buying my rolls of sandpaper, and also I get more of it. So I get 25 yards with them versus when I was getting it at other places. Some places sell it for just 35 feet. So you get a little bit more, and it'll last you a lot longer. So in the end, you're saving a lot of money. So here you can kind of see my technique for cutting these strips. That's a cutting board that actually I cut in half. I bought it just at Walmart, and then I had an extra strip. The reason it has a little strip is I was making some table runners for my table saw, and so that's where the other piece of the cutting board has gone. And then this is just a scrap piece that I just use as my hold down, and also cutting surface for the sandpaper. So you kind of see I have these little 2x2 piece sticks that hold up the cutting board, and that's just so I can get my little spring clamps in there. It's really nice to have the spring clamps holding down on that piece of that little strip of cutting board. And the reason I do that is just so, if you've ever tried to cut something and hold it down at the same time, it's not very easy. So that just helps to eliminate having to hold down and cut. And this just gives me a really precise cut every time. So now what I'm doing is I'm putting my sandpaper, the new one that I just cut, onto the drum. And I tell you, putting sandpaper on this sander versus putting it on a hook and loop, it's so much nicer. It has two clips on the ends, and you just want to make sure you give it enough tension to where there's tension on the belt, but there's also no, if there is a little gap, that's okay. No overlapping though, just so you don't want to put any ridges in your work pieces. And finally, after I guess I didn't get it on video, but whenever you adjust the rollers and you're ready to go, this is where we're at now, where I'm running some test pieces through, um, just dialing it in, seeing if it's working right. And I tell you, see how I have it fed like this? I wasn't able to do that when I first got this machine. It was actually spitting it out and kicking it back towards the back where I'm standing. Really dangerous. I was having to actually guide it and push it all the way through the belt. So this is really nice, and I tell you, each side is completely even. And then here I'm just giving different pieces runs through this machine here to see, am I happy with it? And I tell you, when I was first using it yesterday, this thing was giving me all sorts of snipe everywhere, or else the workpiece just wouldn't move through the belt. It would just stay there, and just if the piece isn't moving through the belt, it'll just stay there, and then next thing you know, you start getting a huge dent of snipe on there. So here I'm just inspecting to see how it looks as it's coming out, and just running it through. These are all my little test pieces that I'm making sure I'm happy with the results, and it's really exciting that once you get your machines dialed in, it does take a little bit of time, and usually this is the kind of stuff that I do later in the evenings, when during the daytime it's all production, it's all getting stuff made, getting it out the door, getting stuff shipped, and hopefully this helps some